Urban legend says that black children were used as alligator bait during the 19th and early 20th centuries. At first, I thought this was an anomaly or something. Maybe like a tall tale of hunters bragging about hunting apex predators. But then I saw it over and over again. And now, I can't unsee it. This is real. This is dark. It is disgusting the lengths humans will go to hurt each other, and it is terrifying how deep the racism in the United States goes. This is what I want to share with you today. My point is not to make you feel bad, but to help us understand the brutality and sheer depravity of our history. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Martin Luther King Jr. "We are not makers of history, we are made by history."
It's a chant that has reverberated around the swamp for at least a quarter century, but the gator bait chant will no longer be endorsed by the University of Florida because of its origins.
Back in 2020, the University of Florida banned its band and athletes from using the gator bait cheer. This was a part of a larger initiative to remove any symbols or association with the cheer's racist history. In 1996, after winning against their rival Florida State University, Lawrence Wright said,
"If you ain't a gator, you must be gator bait."
While the cheer itself is not racist, the phrase is. The phrase gator bait is connected to old stories about black children being used as bait for alligators. This was reported in many publications in the early 1900s, and there are some records to back it up. In the 1800s to 1900s, alligator hunting was a big business, a lucrative trade. The skin from these animals was used to make belts, bags, shoes, and other highly sought-after products. The white settlers saw the land and its wealth as unlimited. So, they would continuously deplete its resources, whether that meant mining, agriculture, or hunting wildlife. Crocodile and alligator hunting was a highly popular sport in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. Among all exotic leathers, both alligator and crocodile skins were very expensive and well-liked products. But the only way to get these skins was to hunt wild animals. And since the demand for the raw material went up, the rich were willing to pay good money for it. This meant more and more people were eager to take the deal. In the 19th century, people used rifles, muskets, and shotguns. Now, I'm not talking about the fast-loading, quick-shooting type of weapons we use today. This is 19th century technology that uses simpler and older mechanisms. In most cases, you would have to load the muzzle with gunpowder before you could aim and shoot. A lot of people without military experience could only manage to shoot 2 shots per minute. Some weapons that use the mini ball, which is a low hollow-based bullet, were made to load faster. But even with weapons such as these, alligator hunting was never easy. White hunters would often lose an arm or a leg, and in some cases, their lives, trying to catch and kill these predators. So they decided to use bait that would lure the alligators from their swamps and turn them into easy prey. But this was no ordinary bait. Some say small black children were often used as bait to catch these apex predators. This might have happened in Louisiana, Florida, and any other parts of the South. White men would come to steal the babies, sometimes in broad daylight, at other times, when the mothers weren't looking, and take these children to the swamp, put them in pens, or tie them with a rope and leave them right next to an alligator's den. In a matter of minutes, the alligators would come out and go after their prey. This is brutal, gut-wrenching. This is a vintage postcard from Florida. It depicted the horrible image of white people using children as alligator bait. Such a deep level of racism was highly prevalent in the American South and was often used to attract tourists, making it a hotspot for white hunters. During the Jim Crow era, African Americans lived a horrible life. They were often mistreated, beaten, and killed in the most brutal way imaginable. If there was a way to oppress, maim, murder, or use black people, they would find it. The atrocities were endless, and they were a part of normal life. Some reports show that black children being used as alligator bait really happened. It happened to real people. Even though it might not have been a highly common practice, it did happen in some regions, especially in the South. It is hard to even process how someone can think of something like that. But for the deformed and deranged human mind, atrocities such as these were deemed normal. That's because black people were seen as subhuman, worthless, and savage. And the lives of animals were considered more valuable than that of a black human child. Experts found a couple of news articles published in the 19th and 20th centuries. These written pieces contained evidence of this horrible activity. The children who were used as bait were probably not infants. They were taught to run out, sit, or make noises just at the right moment. When the alligator would burst out of its hiding place, the hunters would shoot. This created the perfect opportunity to catch the alligator off guard. Here's an article from the Washington Times from 1908. The word pickaninny is used to refer to a black child. This was a stereotype used to demean black children. White people used the term when they wanted to talk about something almost inhuman, unkept, and filthy. It was something dispensable. This was a common depiction even in popular media. The article talks about a zookeeper sending 2 black children into a paddock with more than 25 alligators and crocodiles. The hungry reptiles started chasing the children. This was a tactic they used to lead the reptiles back into their tank so that the tourists could view the animals in the summer. But there is more. Here's another article, this time from Richmond Times-Dispatch, issued in 1919. Here, in this mini-story, we can see that the white community was not really happy with Florida authorities' decision to ban the use of African American children as gator bait. Then, it goes on to mock these children as if it was their fault for the sudden disappearance of alligators because they supposedly ate the pickaninnies and had digestive problems as a result. This is just vile. Here's another article from St. Louis Republic, published in 1902. This one described all the floats featured in the Veiled Prophet Parade of the city. The Veiled Prophet organization was a secret society established by a former Confederate soldier. He organized this parade to depict the history of the Louisiana Purchase. Float number 15, titled Plantation Life in Louisiana, showcased a scene where a massive alligator was depicted devouring a chubby young African-American child. Articles were not the only forms of content that would cover this horrible imagery of alligator baits. There are also postcards, branding, posters, and memorabilia, all providing the exact same thing. This is a postcard, and it is one of the many examples that show black children being used as alligator bait. In the United States, these early postal cards were the text messages of their time. They were cheap and practical to make and could reach a wide range of audience. At the time, they were meant to be mailed as commercial ads. Many of these postcards were printed with small designs or sketches called vignettes. They had a message on the side. At first, the cards were made just in black, but in time, they became increasingly available in color. The many surviving examples of such postcards tell a horrendous story. They were meant to address the people willing to use the lives of black children to collect a prized commodity, alligator skin. The white hunters were using human blood and flesh to lure monstrous crocodiles and alligators. To prepare for the activity, it is said that some white people kidnapped black children, tied them to a string, and dropped them in the swamps. Others would get groups of children and order them to stay over the alligator swamp, near the open mouths of hungry alligators. These children were fed to the predator's hole. This is a documented event that can also be seen in old artifacts, such as product packaging and knickknacks. Here is a classic example of household ornaments that were sold in areas where alligator baits were deemed a tourist attraction. At the time, the shelves in stores were covered with these decorative objects. These antiques come in bold colors and highly intricate designs that don't shy away from America's brutal past. Many of these trinkets are displayed in the Jim Crow Museum of Racist Imagery. This was a system built upon itself to create and keep a society stuck in a vicious cycle of racial hierarchy. The gator bait was also included in popular rhymes and songs. Take The Mammy's Little Alligator Bait by Henry Wise and Sidney Perrin, for example. This lullaby was published in 1899. The lullaby teaches readers to sing and play a song about the gator bait. I can only guess who was reading it. Probably white children. The lyrics are relatively simple and easy to follow, and the music appears to be easy to perfect. I can't even imagine to what lengths did white parents go to shape and corrupt the minds of their children.
Or in a bottle, heated by the rays of the sun.
In a survey in 21 states conducted by the National...
Is this labor camp? There are 2 water taps and 2 outhouses. Families live in one room, usually in one bed. The single men live in the bull pit. Their space, 1 bunk. 4 people live in this room in New Jersey. A family of 6 will move into this room. Nearby, a trotting raceway has new stables for horses.
Has this ever happened before with any crews coming up north?
Once I remember, it was a field in North Carolina.
What happened?
Everybody got killed.
Every year, As predictable as the seasons, there are accidents resulting in death and serious injury to these laborers. On June 6, 1957, at the intersection of U.S. Route 301 and State Highway 102, 9 miles from Fayetteville, North Carolina, 21 migrants were killed, 17 males, 3 females, and the baby boy. The police report stated one of the causes of the high loss of life was the packaging of the occupants of the truck.
Today, only 6 states have laws providing for the safe transportation of migrants within their borders. The state of North Carolina is not one of the 6.
Secretary of Labor Mitchell.
Hardly a year goes by that we don't read in the paper of some very serious accident where sometimes a dozen or more people have been killed purely because there is no interstate standard with regard to safety.
Another complication of the migrant stream is the constant flow of foreign workers.
Taken great strides. We can't expect states to do it alone when they know their neighboring state with whom their farmers compete are not doing anything. We know that just about everybody in this country has some federal support for adequate housing through FHA or whatever the program is, except the farm community. And the migrant farmer is the most poorly housed member of our society.
Senator Williams, a Democrat, and Secretary of Labor Mitchell, a Republican, have called for legislation which will probably come before the next session of Congress. And only last week, President Eisenhower made the Presidential Committee on Migrants a permanent body. But the real problem is that there are many kinds of farmers and many kinds of crops. The big mechanized grain and dairy farmers use little or no migrant labor. Some of the major canneries do pay